Welcome everyone to our third panel of the day. The career panel is part of the Climatematch Academy professional development activities, trying to make sure that we can bring the diverse voices in the climate-related fields to share their career perspectives with attendees for our first year Climatematch Academy program. We have more than 400 participants from a wide range of countries. I forgot the exact number. Abigail, do you know the exact number of the countries that we have?
I think over 70, but don't quote me on that. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's awesome. Yeah, and we're really glad that you chose to join Climatematch Academy program this year, and hope you can get the most out of it. And I am Dr. Varao, research scientist with North Carolina Institute for Climate Studies, and that's my day job. And starting last year, Abigail, myself, and some others co-founded the Climatematch Academy program. We're really excited this program came into reality this summer. And we really appreciate the support from NASA, Transform to Open Science, Neuromatch, and other sponsors and for the events. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the two panelists for this final career panel session. Dr. Sheila Saia and Dr. Abigail Bodner. And the panel will start with opening remarks from each of them individually, and we have some prepared questions for the panel, and then we'll move on into moderate Q&A for audiences who want to ask their questions using the Q&A tab. And without further ado, I would like to invite Sheila to give opening remarks.
Yeah, so Douglas asked us to talk a little bit about our career journey. So I guess I'll start. I have a bachelor's of science in bioengineering. It's a little bit of a strange bioengineering degree. We actually studied complex systems. So I did a lot of coding and biology classes for that. I also have a master's and PhD in biological and environmental engineering. So really my background is in hydrology and environmental engineering. I'm also really passionate about coding and open science. And so I've connected with Douglas on a number of initiatives to explore open data science in like the climate space. My current position, I'm the Associate Director of the State Climate Office of North Carolina. We're a public service center and we serve the weather and climate needs of North Carolinians. So, anyone can come to us if they have a weather or climate question. We'll try to get them the data that they need and help them do research to inform different applications and decision-making that they have to do. So at the State Climate Office, one of my main responsibilities is to lead a team of scientists who maintain a network of 44 weather stations. These are 10 meter or 30 feet, depending on which unit you like to use, weather stations. So they're quite big. They're all across the state, and we're recording 18 different environmental variables every minute. So a lot of data coming into our office. And these data we make available free to the public, and they're used for research and applications in a number of different sectors, ranging from agriculture to weather forecasting, to even emergency management, city and regional planning, and much more. So in my free time, I volunteer for Our Ladies Global. Our Ladies is an international nonprofit that supports women and non-binary members of the R coding community. And I also know Douglas because we were postdoctoral researchers together. So we go back and done a lot of work together. And yeah, we're still working together. So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for having me and for inviting me, and I'm excited to take questions from everyone.
Right, excellent. Thanks, Sheila. And Abigail, do you want to go do a quick intro of yourself and how you get to the position you are, and also don't forget, also Abigail is the exec director for the Climatematch Academy program.
Yeah, thanks, Douglas, and hi everyone. I'm sorry I can't see your faces, but I hope you're having a great experience so far. So I'm Abigail. I'm the executive director of Climatematch Academy. But really, what this means is that I kind of had the initial idea, but there's a whole group of over 150 volunteers on the Climatematch side and over 600 on the Neuromatch side that have really worked to create this experience that you're going through right now. So I'm so excited that we finally made it kind of to this endpoint, which we've been pursuing this whole year. So a bit about me. I'm originally from Israel. I started with a bachelor's degree in math, theoretical math, and political science, actually. And at some point, I dropped out of political science and went towards earth science. But I came from a very theoretical background. I got a master's in atmospheric fluid dynamics, which again is like this very theoretical fluid dynamics field, and continued to a PhD at Brown University in the US in the field of oceanography. But once again, I stayed in this kind of geophysical fluid dynamic world. And only towards the end of my PhD, I started using MATLAB to make plots and started getting into coding. I then kind of continued more into climate modeling, again, through this like more theoretical perspective. And I'm currently in a postdoc position at New York University in a department. So I'm in the Courant Institute for Mathematical Sciences, but within Courant, there is a department of atmosphere and ocean sciences. And the group that I work in right now is working on kind of the cutting edge data science, climate modeling, oceanography intersection. And that got me really excited about climate data and different tools that we can use. And in fact, that's the journey that I really went through from not knowing how to code at all to where I am right now, which I do machine learning and I do all sorts of like data science stuff, got me really excited about these tools that we use and how we really should be spreading the word to people so they can use this data in order to understand climate better and the impacts that climate change might have on the region that they live in. So that's really what inspired Climatematch. And Douglas and I overlapped at a workshop for machine learning and climate. And we got to meet a lot of cool people that work at this intersection. And fortunately, there's a lot of people that really care about this mission and want to be involved in teaching computational tools for climate. So we got a whole lot of day leads involved, and each person created a full tutorial day that you're working through. And it's really cool to see the different topics that we're covering. And hopefully, you know, this will help you in your journey as you go from data to action, which is the motto that we're after. So, yeah.
Thanks, Abigail. I want to start some like prepared questions. And so first of all, is like what motivates you to pursue your current career pathways? And are there any pivotal points during your career that change your perspective on your career trajectory or on career in general? So Sheila, do you want to go first? You're muted still. I know it's still very challenging.
Yes, let me think. So I think the biggest shift for me, so when I finished my like bachelor's of science, I was like, I could go in 2 different tracks. I was thinking I could either go, a lot of my peers, they went more of like the biomedical engineering track. But I was really always interested in like the environmental sciences. I actually never took an environmental science class in undergrad. They were all like biology classes or things like that. I don't even know. I think the closest class I took was maybe a GIS, geospatial information science class. But I was always interested in like the natural world. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. There was water all around me. I fished with my dad and my family. It was like we would often go like swimming and hang out near Lake Erie, which is one of the Great Lakes in the US. And I was always like thinking about that, and I was applying for jobs, and long story short, like the opportunity presented itself to kind of go more of the environmental direction versus like this medical type of direction. Like I was actually thinking about going like public health and get an MPH or something like that. So then I started working, actually I was a member of AmeriCorps, which is like the domestic version of the Peace Corps. So I was stationed in a nonprofit in Buffalo, and I led volunteer efforts at this nonprofit, and I got a really good sense of like some of the issues that were facing Buffalo in terms of water quality and water quantity. And I also met like environmental engineers who worked at the organization and who collaborated with the organization. And I just found out like, oh, it was really an interesting career path. And so, based on some guidance from folks at that organization, I actually applied to grad school. And I think that's like maybe the biggest like turning point for me in my career, was to start grad school specifically for like environmental engineering. And then kind of like the rest is history after that.
Great, thanks. That reminded me my debate with my mom, because I also went to undergrads majoring in math, and then I was really passionate about environmental conservation. That's the time I started doing the internship and volunteering with some NGOs, and then I really want to try to do something that aligns with my personal interests. And then my mom always wanted me to go into economics and finance, which I defied her wish and then get into earth science after all. Abigail?
Yeah, I feel like I was never this thought out. Like I never thought I was actually really good at math, and let alone coding, which as I mentioned, I didn't do until very recently. At some point I started teaching math to kids, and I realized that I really liked it. And then I was interested in what you might learn in the university level math class, and I did not do well. Like if you saw my grades, you would not believe it. But I think I just kind of had faith that I can understand more than the grades will say. And I do get also like anxiety when I take tests like that. Even to this day, like I get really nervous if I have to do something that I get evaluated on in the end. And I don't know, I just kept doing what I enjoy. And I guess the biggest turning point in my career is I had two kids when I was in grad school, and one of them was like a few weeks after before the pandemic started. And that really made me like reevaluate my life choices. My family also lives abroad, and it was quite confusing to, realize like, do I really like this enough? Do I want to do this? Should I be a stay-at-home mom? Should I, go into a different career? Should we move back? But fortunately, I mean, I find the earth sciences, climate science community to be like just a fun group of people to work with. And I think that the community that I got involved with, and we can see a lot of the people also part of Climatematch are just the most supportive bunch of people that I would want to work with, and that kind of kept me going. Yeah, and I don't know what to say. I can never, like, I don't think at any point I knew what the next step would be, but opportunities emerged, and I was really fortunate to have great mentors, which I think that was a huge role in my path too. So
Thanks, Abigail. I think you echo some of the points that from earlier panel, is that oftentimes the career is not linear, and I often use non-linearity to describe my career path, that I used to be described as outliers in my undergraduate courses, and then through different internships and networking through some help and a little bit luck at some points, that I ended up as my current position, and finding a network in the community that you feel comfortable and you feel supported is also very key. And finding those who will usually share the resources and information that can help you succeed and go to the next steps. And oftentimes thinking about it as like stepwise planning. So not think about your planning for your next 50 years, but rather planning for next 2 years. And then once you achieve that goal, and then what's the next thing for the next 2 years. That's the overall feedback from the previous 2 panels as well. So, and I think just to piggyback on some of the topics you already discussed, and there's a question from the audience that for people who may have not doesn't know how to code or doesn't have strong background in those computational skills, and it's just starting, what are the basics and what are some recommendations you can provide that may be helpful?
You want to go first, Abigail?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping that this course provides some of the background that can at least expose students to what's out there. I feel like my biggest challenge was I didn't even know what exists. Like, it took me a very long time to realize that Google is my friend, which I highly recommend you use. Or if like Google doesn't work where you live, then some sort of search engine. But there's so many resources online. And it's very likely that if you're having problems, someone else has also had that same problem, and they've probably posted about it, and there's probably a solution about it. And that realization has saved me a lot of time and frustration. And I think patience is extremely important, because there are some people that just know how to code, and they've done it since they were 5 years old, and it's so easy for them. And it's really hard if you're, in your kind of adult life and you don't know how to do that. But also I found that people really like to help other people. And also just, it takes time. You have to do the same thing over and over and over again, kind of like a monkey, until you have some sort of muscle memory and you know how to do it. And there's no harm in, like, you would not believe the things I Google all the time, because I forget the syntax to make like certain subplots, and I forget the syntax to like certain X-array stuff. And that's like, it's fine. I think if you put your ego aside and you realize that you're in your learning path and you will get there, and as long as you can do the science you want to do, then it's okay. Just be forgiving, and everyone has different backgrounds. It's just a language. It's nothing more than that.
Right. Thanks, Abigail.
Yeah, I definitely echo all those points. And I guess for me, like when people always ask me a similar question to this, I always suggest that they focus on learning one particular language. So maybe you're just going to focus on Python, or you're just going to focus on R, or, MATLAB, or whatever language you want. I would suggest picking one and then trying to dive into that one before jumping into another, because it can be confusing with the syntax jumping from one to the other if you've never coded before. Once you learn one and you're feeling comfortable, maybe you don't have to Google as much anymore, or you can, just, it's almost like you're fluent, like you don't really have to like look up things as much. Then I think learning a second coding language can be helpful, because, not every coding language can do everything. So some are good at some things and others are good at other things. And you'll learn that the more you use one or the other. You'll also talk to friends that can say like, well, Python is good for this and R is good for that. So yeah, they definitely have pros and cons for each language. But I would say just stick with one for now as you're learning from the start, and then kind of go that way. I guess the other thing, kind of just to echo Abigail, is like, you're gonna make mistakes and you're gonna have typos and you're gonna get error messages, and that's all just the thing that everybody goes through. And you just kind of have to, I still have that problem. Sometimes you just have to kind of, if you're really getting really frustrated, just take a break, get up from your computer, walk around, maybe ask your friend for help, and then come back to your computer. And usually there's, or do some Googling, and usually like you'll have a solution. And if not, you can always reach out to some of those infinity groups, like if you're using R Ladies Global, or Pi Ladies, or there's so many other online organizations that Climatematch, like your friends and colleagues on there. So yeah, definitely reach out to folks in groups that you are a member of, or that support folks like you.
Yeah, I have to say, in my current job, I now started doing a little bit more paperwork, and which is less fun than doing coding. I always wish that I had more time to do the coding. I'm sure some of you have shared the same experience. So I think there's a specific question addressing related to a Climatematch, and maybe this will be geared towards Abigail, because when we design a curriculums and the course, we are trying to cover a quite broad range of contents. And so that for some students, when they came in, may get overwhelmed. And so they're asking there's so many things, and start following tutorials since day 5 and really feel a little bit confused. And there are a lot of different things going on in the course books. And so what would the advice you would give to people they feel a little bit overwhelmed at this point for the program?
So I'm also feeling overwhelmed. I think, again, this is a lot of content. It's a lot of different topics. And the idea was to expose you to the variety of things that exist. The book is not going away. The Jupyter Hub is not going away. Colab is not going away. So everything can be accessed after the course is over. And the idea really, and how we built the curriculum and designed it, is we wanted to make sure that we give people an understanding of the different data sets that are out there, what they represent, how you can use them to do what you're curious about. So, and then kind of in the last part of this week, we focus more on the impacts on like the socioeconomic sphere. And that is all new. Like everyone in this course is doing really cutting edge research right now, because there are very few people in the world that are taking the climate science part and applying it to the impacts on the environment. So this is the challenges you're facing might also be indicative of the challenges in the field, that it's a little bit hard to make that transition. There are different data sets, they have different grids, they have different time, series. Like this is all representative of what the data looks like. But I do, sorry, this is a tangent. I do understand that this is, it can be confusing. And I think that the main takeaway of this course should be that you are exposed to a variety of different topics and tools and data sets. And then the next step after that is up to you to determine what you're most curious about. And if it's remote sensing, that's super exciting, because now you know something you're interested in. That's more than I knew, when I was, I don't know how many years ago when I started. So that's already something that you can learn more about, get more researches on, and go more carefully through the tutorials with more time. So if anything, I think this should be an excitement point rather than a stressful situation.
Yeah, and also be kind to yourself as well. Like Abigail mentioned, that it's a lot of content. It's 8 hours every day, and then trying to go through both tutorials and projects. We're not expecting you to have a paper at the end of the course. And so this is a beginning. Like Abigail mentioned, nothing's going away. So you can always coming back, referring to the things that you interest you the most, or some things that you haven't quite get fully understand yet, but you can always come back to the course book. And I also use a course book with some of my student interns that I currently have, that point them to some of the node codes that they can learn from and then modify it based on those. And so with that, I think a few questions comes in about the job opportunities, where to find those. And so I'm going to combine those questions to see if there are any questions. Do you have, yes, Abigail, Saia, where to find some like jobs related to climate field? And then maybe Abigail, you can start because you already put the link there.
Sure. So the only kind of note is that this is still a work in progress, but on the website for Climatematch Academy, we have been trying to maintain a job board where we're posting all sorts of opportunities that we come across. So a lot of them tend to be academic, because that's a lot of who the core team is. But there are quite a few climate and tech positions that have been becoming more and more available in recent years. So I think that kind of Douglas mentioned that, you know, it was a bit of a struggle to go towards this career because it wasn't practical, but I think we're starting to get into this time where actually there's a lot of work to be done in climate, and that's actually pretty cool to see. So if you're interested in an opportunity, you could check out our job board. We're going to probably do a better job maintaining it when we're not busy running the course, but there are quite a few opportunities there that would be cool. Additionally, I'd like to highlight something that we're working on for after the course is over. You may notice in the book there is a tab called continuing your project after the course or something like that, where we provide some instructions on how you might turn your project into a proposal. And we are going to be actively working on providing opportunities for students that are taking the course to then continue their research project in some sort of more formal setting. So that's something that I don't have much to report on just yet, but I think that would be a really great starting point also if you want to continue your research with some sort of mentorship.
Right. Thanks, Abigail. Sheila, do you have anything related, possible places to find job opportunities and also internship as well as graduate school opportunities?
So since this is like an international call, I guess I would say probably the best way is to look, at least for like university type of positions, like maybe looking for PhD or master's opportunities, is to see if there is, like, I know like the European Geophysical Union, or the American Geophysical Union, or the Japanese Geophysical Union. There are all these different parts of the globe that have geophysical unions. So I would consider looking at their websites, and they have job boards. And those are, you know, academic positions for master's or PhD positions, but they will also post like industry jobs or government jobs or things like that. So I would definitely take a look at those types of job postings in addition to, you know, some of the ones that Abigail mentioned and Douglas mentioned.
Yeah, I think also LinkedIn is a good place as well. A lot of people are posting openings, opportunities, and especially if you're interested in the industry and other organizations, because not all the university or academic opportunities will be on LinkedIn all the time, but be sure that all the industry jobs will be on LinkedIn, because that's the primary place where they will post the job and it's there. And I think there are a few questions comes in related to different path of careers. So I know like all three of us here have a PhD and work in academic or academic related adjacent domain, but we do have panelists from industry, from federal agency, as well as from nonprofits share their perspective earlier. But I just want to see Sheila and Abigail. So what's some of those like emerging professions that you see in the climate related fields that might be of interest to people who may not necessarily want to go into academia or like research focused jobs?
I have some thoughts. So I guess like I was recently at a conference, and it was hosted by like the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which is a federal agency here in the US that like the National Weather Service is under that, and some other offices as well, but that's one of the main ones. And they mentioned that they are increasingly looking for social scientists to collaborate with folks who have, for example, meteorology or hydrology or engineering degrees, to support the work that they do, because increasingly they're working on interdisciplinary projects and trying to make sure that the tools and applications that they are developing for weather and climate applications are usable by people. So, you know, a social scientist has specific training that, you know, someone in meteorology might not gain. So those organizations are, you know, thinking about how they can increase the number of social scientists that they're hiring. In terms of, I guess, other interdisciplinary, I mean, for sure, like that is a valuable skill if you have some sort of qualitative research background. I think there's a lot of need for, I mean, we really need everybody to solve climate change. So I think it's like really, you know, where you have some experience that you can bring to the table and a new perspective. So I think really you shouldn't be discouraged if you don't have a degree in, you know, engineering, or you don't have a degree in mathematics or meteorology. I think everyone can really contribute.
Right. Thanks, Sheila. Abigail?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to add to that, just that there do seem to be a lot of multidisciplinary opportunities coming up in really all aspects. I mean, someone here asked about humanities. I think there's a lot of room for us to ask about ethics and about, you know, impacts on different societies and cultures. There are opportunities related to, I think today's content is, or tomorrow, sorry, I don't know what day it is related to adaptation and mitigation. So a lot of companies are now coming up with ideas of how they might contribute to that. And then this whole kind of world of machine learning and AI is really taken over vision and how we can, I mean, that's what Douglas does too. I mean, how we can look at changes in land and evaluate moving forward. So I think maybe this is something that you might ask yourself, you know, what skill sets you have and where you see yourself going, and then try to find something that works for you, because there do seem to be so many opportunities emerging.
Yeah, I just see a question comes in from Flavio. I really love that you shared your story of that you have to change your career trajectory. So I think in the remote sensing and the Earth observation field, there are definitely space for anyone who are interested in that, especially there's really growing activities in the private sector side, how those like satellites observation can be used in climate related field, like the land use, land cover, monitoring the forest, like deforestation and all sorts of things. And so I would really encourage you to look, if you really want to get back into remote sensing, Earth observation fields, try look at those opportunities. And one of the panelists today was from Digital Earth Africa. So they were really looking at how they can use Earth observation or satellite remote sensing data to help the continent of Africa to realize the sustainable developments. And so that got distracted by that question that I really want to jump, or the comments I really want to jump into. And one thing I see in the list of questions has been asking about how can we sustain the community or network that maybe you met in the Climatematch Academy, or maybe you met at other events or conference and workshops, and to sustain those. And well, maybe Abigail, you can speak for Climatematch Academy, how we want to engage participants after this program. And then Sheila, maybe you can share your perspective from other, like your past activities.
Yeah, so again, this is something that's very much a work in progress, but we are trying to partner with all sorts of institutions that are working on this intersection of climate and data science, or, you know, computational tools for climate science, and trying to see if we can pair between or match between a project and a mentor that's a senior scientist in that field to help kind of realize these projects towards their full potential. But this is something that's still in progress, and I really hope we'll be able to get this to happen for this year. But if anything, you know, putting together this project proposal will allow us to use that proposal to and train people into this program. And also we are talking to organizations foundations such as CMIP, which I think you've worked with the data yesterday, to allow also Climatematch participants to present the project findings in a conference that's happening in the fall. The Northern Hemisphere fall. So there are a lot of really exciting opportunities. The community is very excited about Climatematch Academy. Due to the short timeline since we started this program to when the course is run, we haven't been able to really line up explicitly, but we are working very hard on making this happen for this year.
Maybe if you can let people know how they can get those information.
The best thing to do would be to apply to this program at the end of August. So I think there will be an announcement made in the closing ceremony at the end of this week of how you can participate. But after you present your projects at the end of this week, you will then give an opportunity to polish your results, not, completed for publications, but just, clean it up a little bit, write a little short description of what you've done and your path, and then how you might continue this, and then apply to our program at the end of August. And we will be working in the meantime on finding some sort of mentorship to extend the project.
Thanks, Abigail. And Sheila, can you also share some of the experience you had, like maintaining a network you developed in the past?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Let's see. I guess this is another, like someone mentioned in the chat, like, balancing work and life and learning new things, and how do we do that? So I would say, like, number one thing is, like, be kind to yourself, especially if you're working a full-time job that is not Climatematch. You don't maybe you have a family too, so you're, have some limited time. But do the best you can to kind of fit in and make kind of like carve out some time, because you are passionate about this particular thing. That's why you're attending something like this. And so make sure you're setting aside time and you have a plan for, what you're going to do next. In August, I'm going to apply for this thing that Abigail mentioned, or, I'm going to talk to, by the end of September, I'm going to try to talk to and stay in touch with 3 people I met, or something. Like, try to formulate some solid plan for, like, what you're going to do next. Maybe, looking, doing some research on external like groups, maybe, or maybe like how I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know too much about how Climatematch is formulated, but like, is there ways you can use or continue to chat with folks on Climatematch, maybe have regular meetups or something for your region, and maybe there's opportunities for leadership. So I found that, like, at least for something like Our Ladies Global, sometimes you have to kind of take initiative and step forward and say, I'm going to volunteer to do this thing. You might not know what you're really getting into, but a lot of times, it has a lot of benefits, and, you're building connections with people, and you're laying the foundation for other people to build connections with you and with other people in the region. So yeah, that was a lot, but some thoughts.
Yeah, we definitely welcome volunteers who want to help us to improve the Climatematch Academy, like, into the future years, and including maybe designing some additional projects, or improving the curriculums and the contents tutorials that we have, and contributing to that. And so yes, thanks for queuing us up, like, Sheila. This is not like planned. And we have a specific question for Sheila. So you said that you study complex systems. They want to know, do you think that it's possible to study systems in general, no matter if there are climate systems or economic systems or biological systems, searching to find properties that they all may share? That's a Nobel Prize like topic, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it is kind of interesting thinking back to some of the classes I took as part of my major. It's interesting because I actually had to code up from scratch in, I think it was Mathematica we used, an artificial neural network to detect whether or not a sample was breast cancer or not. And so that was something I did by hand. I don't remember what I did, like it was a long time ago, but it's just crazy how far this like field has come, where now, we have deep learning where it's like, an artificial network with so many hidden layers, like hundreds of thousands of hidden layers. And we're running this on, our laptop, or like for a small data set maybe, or, we're connecting to the cloud and running it on our laptop. So I think I guess to answer that person's maybe question that I sort of understand is, I feel like the climate is definitely complex. There's a lot of pieces, how people behave, how initial conditions, which we're not really sure about, right? Other things that really play a role and shape the complexities of our climate. And I think, yeah, like as much as we can learn about that, it might be impossible to understand everything. But as much as we can learn to take action and address climate change, I think, yeah, we'll need, kind of echoing what I said before, we'll need everyone's help on that.
Yeah, Abigail, do you have anything you want to add? I know you also study theoretical math, so that.
Yeah, I think they're like, it's a really complex system, and there are different angles that you could take to understand it. Kind of some of the things that we tried to do in the climate modeling day, which was the last day of last week, is to see how we can reduce the complexity of the climate system to a more like a simple model, where we look at just the carbon, for example, what comes in, what goes out, and how that would affect the earth. And then of course you can go on to like full complexity and think about, earth system models and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of really cool tools out there, theoretical math and physics that and chemistry that one could study complex systems with.
Right, thanks. And also one question I want to address to see if you want to answer is that in our own introduction, we also said we are PhDs and we are doing postdoc. We did postdocs, and people have the question whether PhD is necessary or is like critical if they want to move into a field. Maybe one specific is asking about academia, but people also ask about industry and then other domains. Would having a PhD or advanced degrees be beneficial to that? So I'm gonna maybe Abigail, you can go first, and then Sheila next.
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
So whether PhD or those like advanced degrees is necessary to be in the fields of like climate and climate related like domain.
Yeah, I honestly don't know too much because I was in this academic path, but seeing the different jobs that are emerging, especially in the tech related field, to me it seems that you could do so much also even, without any advanced degrees, or maybe even without any degree at all. I mean, a lot of things require more basic skills related to either working, with people in the communities, or even, coding, and if you're working in some sort of tech company. But I want to believe, just seeing a lot of things going on right now, that it does not have to be the standard approach.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sheila?
I would agree. My opinion is you do not need an advanced degree to contribute. And there's a lot of different roles, at least that I've seen, that, it's, there's a lot of data, and there's data analyst positions. So those necessarily don't require a master's or a PhD. However, I will note that, like, if you want to do research, it's usually easier to get into those types of positions. Not saying that you can't, but the master's or the PhD, that will guide you through how to do a research project. Like that's the point of those programs. Unless you're doing like a course-based master's, then you might not get that experience. But if you are doing like a thesis-based master's, where you have a master's thesis or you have a PhD thesis, you'll get that experience to do research, which will then be invaluable if that's the track that you want to take. But if you want to, if you don't want to do research, if you want to do, I don't know, if you want to build a model and put it into production, that you might not necessarily, you might need like some understanding of like being curious and how to evaluate models, but maybe not necessarily like research.
Yeah, I think overall the answer from my perspective, the answer is like, no, you don't really need it's not necessary to have an advanced degree to get into the field of climate and climate related fields. And a lot of times those employers will also provide resources for you to get advanced degree if they think you will help your job. So, and there's sometimes nowadays people are more focused on the equity and providing opportunities for people coming from a different background that have different experience. So working experience sometimes can be just as valuable as a degree, advanced degree you can get from the university. And one of the panelists today in the morning, he only has had a bachelor degree and then went on to get some of the advanced degrees on her jobs. And so it's not that without advanced degree, you cannot get a job. And another question related to that is that, so what do you think about the PhD from other disciplines or domains can contribute to the climate and climate fields? I guess that goes back to the discipline, like the multidisciplinary approach that attack the entire climate change related issues.
Yeah, when we set off to think about the vision of Climatematch, this discussion came up a lot because we really don't feel like there is one way to do climate science. And you can see that by everyone pouring in from different fields right now and contributing the tools and the skills that they have towards this problem that we care deeply about. It's also the impact of climate change are different everywhere around the world, and we still don't know that. We still don't have that information. We don't know how to address that. And that's why we really need as many people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, global distribution of nationalities to be thinking about what they care about and what impacts them the most. And I don't think that this is clearly a one directional scientific field. And I do think that we need to connect more with social scientists and with environmentalists and just people living in the community that are not of any sort of position, but they live through a certain struggle each day. And I think there's a lot of room to bridge over different fields.
Right, thanks, Abigail. I totally agree. Yeah, now there are a lot of people from economics, from social science, from community, social work, and other domains, really to look at the uneven distribution of the impact and how we can address those issues. And there's also my colleagues looking at mental health as a result and outcome from some of the climate change and climate issues. So there are really, anyone can contribute like overall, and there also be the engineering solutions and other things. I do really like one of the question about the imposter syndrome. So that question I think is worth highlighting here. So have you experienced imposter syndromes at any time of your career up till now? And then how do you address those? Sheila, do you want to go first?
Yes. The answer is yes. And yes, I've experienced imposter syndrome. How do I address it? I don't know. I'm still actively working on that maybe, but I think it's it's being in spaces like this where you can connect with people that have a shared passion for, data science, climate science, environmental science, and like encouraging each other and having that supportive community. That has really been the way that I've gotten through some of the struggles. So I think that's probably the best. And when you see other people struggling, is to also support them. Like, you're doing a great job. Like, you're, you got that one line of code to run without any errors, like that kind of thing. And it's just reminding folks that like it's definitely challenging. We're all facing those challenges. And it's takes little baby steps, but you'll eventually get there. Yeah.
How about you, Abigail?
Well, the joke is that Douglas asked me if I can come today, and I told him that I don't think I'm good enough to participate in the panel. So clearly imposter syndrome is, still affecting me till this day. But I think this goes kind of back to just being confident in your path. There's this saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So there's always something to learn, and there's always people to learn from. I would focus less on, am I, the best I can be? And, that's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of anxiety there too. But just, do you have the people around you? Do you have the community to support you and the mentors in your life that you need to do what you want to do? Because you will probably make mistakes. You'll probably, be an imposter at some point. But as long as you have that confidence, I think you can brush it off. Or,
Yeah.
fake it till you make it until you feel confident enough.
Thanks, Abigail and Sheila. And I think everyone at some point or have the experience of imposter syndrome when thinking about, am I good enough to do that? And be confident in yourself, and don't oversell as well. So make sure be confident, but don't oversell yourself. And then even you making mistakes, like Abigail said, it's not the end of the world, that you can always recover from that. And it may take some time, but at some point you'll get there.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing, Douglas?
Yeah, sure.
I think that being interested, I think I responded in that comment, that being interested and curious can probably go way further than people believe. Because there are a lot of people that maybe, oversell and, are trying to do a certain thing. But if you're truly passionate about something, and I've seen in the comments here, people are really interested in doing this one specific thing. Knowing that is so rare. Not a lot of people know they want to do something specific or know they're interested in something at all in life. And I think that that's, real treasure, and, feel confident in that. And that will get you somewhere eventually.
Yeah, and I guess I also wanted to add, just thinking is kind of related to the don't oversell yourself, is think about who you are, what you're good at, and try as best as you can to be your authentic self, and to, tell the truth about you, so what are you passionate about? And in some cases you won't know, and that's fine. It's fine to not know things, right? So I think that's also something that's helpful to remember, is you're not going to know everything, and that's okay, and you can always do some research and learn more about it, or ask a friend. And it's okay to not know everything. Yeah.
And okay, so since we only have a few minutes left, the question I do want to pose is, so because all of you had certain transition during your career path, either it's from one domain to another, and from one country to another, from one's yes. And so what do you have as advice for people who might thinking about certain transitions or is going through the transitions, and what's the advice you have for them, and what do you think can help them going through the transition?
I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I really think that community is one of the strongest things that you can have in this path. And we hope that a community like Climatematch, which is virtual and global, can provide you support wherever you are and whatever time zone you live on, because we're trying to eliminate that dependency. So we hope that you're forming relationships in this course that can help you in whatever next step you take, and that networking and collaborations will also emerge. And I think that that's a pretty good starting point as you think about transitioning to the next stage.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would also add, in addition to community, is to, be curious and open-minded. especially in terms of like opportunities, like thinking about, if like, yeah, just be open to opportunities that might come your way. And, try not to close the door too early to an opportunity. Because that could take you in a direction you never thought you would be like. So yeah, I think that's also important, is being open and being curious, in addition to like having that community.
Okay, great. So for people who are in different pods, I would encourage you to maybe create a connection with your local pod members or with others you met during the Climatematch Academy to form certain like informal like social groups that can help you to find the opportunities in the next steps. And one last question, I guess. So if you were to do things differently, well, not saying that you have to say you want to do things differently, but throughout your time until the current stage of your career, if you were to do things differently, what would your advice to be for your previous selves? Or either that could be a skill you want to learn early on, or that there are things you want to try.
The hard one. I think I would tell myself to try to stress less about things that maybe don't matter, but maybe in retrospect they don't matter. Maybe in the moment they really mattered. Yeah, I think I try to get more things done than I can sometimes, but sometimes it works out and sometimes you're just really hard on yourself. So that's yeah.
Thanks, Abigail. I don't think I would do anything differently, but I would definitely, try to be, or tell myself to be kind to, like, just repeat that, be kind to yourself. And I would also, so I've been exploring this more lately, but I do think we talked a little bit about this before, like that there is definitely a space, and I know Douglas and I have definitely talked about this before, for art and science in the climate space. And so I think that maybe I would have started doing more of that sooner, or tried to. I'm not really sure what that will look like for me in the future, but yeah, I'm excited to keep like plodding along and seeing how that goes. I'm definitely interested in that intersection, and I feel like there are a growing number of scientists who are as well. So
yeah, and I think we have a few questions about really specific topics of combining remote sensing or combining different things together on the research. So I think there are, for example, the example of combining remote sensing and the coastal flooding. Those are definitely having a really big market, even within the university as well as outside academia, because there has really a real world impact to support communities, the coastal communities. And I know within the United States, there are a lot of funding going to support community organization to build those resilient communities. So that is a skill that's not necessarily just useful within academia. And I know, well, Sheila, do you want to mention anything about those coastal resilience initiatives that the state of North Carolina may have, or any other things that you have saw before?
unfortunately, I'm not the lead on that project, but there are programs from like the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration here in the US, and I am not as familiar with other countries, but I'm sure they have, where they're putting significant grant funds to support, climate resilience and climate adaptation. So I think things like remote sensing and coastal flooding, or machine learning, and using machine learning to detect flooding and things like that, like those types of things, I think they're all viable and
Thanks.
emerging topics of interest.
Thanks, Sheila. And if you want, maybe you can have a follow-up conversation with Sheila about her previous projects about looking at the impacts on the oyster industry. Yes, the water quality, the connection between climate, agriculture, and aquaculture. I guess that should be called aquaculture. So I think with that, I want to close this panel by thanking everyone who joined. And I'm sorry that we cannot get to all the questions, but I would like to see if Abigail and Sheila want to share how people can connect with you if they want to ask you more questions. Whether you want to share your social media or share your email that people want to connect. I know, yeah, I will leave it up to you, Abigail and Sheila.
Sure, I'm on Discord. I will write my email also in the chat if anyone wants to reach out. And just a very quick note that if you're looking for community and you're still curious about, how to continue a lot of the stuff that you're doing in the course, we are always looking for volunteers. And I know this will be discussed at the end of the course, but you're also welcome to join the Climatematch Academy volunteer community and continue kind of these conversations and exciting opportunities beyond the course. That was just some self-promotion, and now I'll give you my email address in the Zoom.
I also wanted to say, if folks are interested in joining like Our Ladies, we do have local chapters. So like we have a chapter here in Raleigh and Durham, we have chapters in London, we have chapters all over the world. So if you're interested in like finding a supportive network, if you identify as a woman or non-binary member and you use our, like it'd be awesome, an awesome place to get feedback and input. That's maybe not necessarily climate related, but there's definitely folks there that will respond to my code is broken or I can't. So to do that would be ourladies.org. I can put it in the chat. The best way to reach me, I'm on social media. It's just my first and last name on most of the social medias. That's probably the best way. And if you want to send me an email, maybe get in touch with Douglas and then he can share my email.
Right, thanks. I know like these days everyone email is getting exploded.
Yeah.
Social media is always a great platform. I know our panelists earlier also offered they are willing to connect on LinkedIn with some of them. If you mentioned from Climatematch Academy, that put in the notes in that they always try to prioritize the connection there. Right. With that, I would like to thank both Sheila and Abigail again, and thanks for everyone who attended the session today. And the recording will be uploaded to the YouTube for people who cannot attend to join. Right.
Thanks so much, everyone. So great to meet you all.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the webinar now. Thanks, Abigail.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye-bye.